So today we're diving into a collection of modern Islamic moral stories for children. And look, these are way more than just bedtime tales. They're actually a really deliberate educational framework, you know? They're designed to give kids a kind of spiritual compass for navigating all of life's challenges. So how do these stories actually work to build a child's character from the inside out? Let's break it down. And it all really kicks off with this pretty profound question. These stories introduce kids to a struggle they can't see, a battle for their hearts and minds against a force they might feel but can't physically touch, shaitan, or Satan. Now, the point here isn't to scare them, not at all. It's about making them aware of that internal conflict we all feel. Now, what's so cool about this is how it takes something totally abstract and makes it, well, real for a kid. In one story, a boy named Ahmed is lost in a forest, but he's not just lost, right? He's facing these very specific inner challenges. Shaitan tempts him with greed, showing him these fake gold coins. He tries to make him angry over a broken toy. He uses scary noises to make him afraid. But for every single temptation, there's a spiritual tool to fight back. Dua for contentment, sabr for patience, and iman for courage. It's like a direct map of emotional triggers and their perfect antidotes. Okay, so this brings us to our first major theme, the invisible battle for good. This is where these stories really set up what's at stake, not as a bunch of external rules, but as a series of internal choices. And this is the key, right? The real battlefield isn't some enchanted forest out there somewhere. It's happening right inside the child's own mind. Every single story comes down to a choice, the choice to be patient instead of angry or to be content instead of greedy. And that framing is just so psychologically powerful because it's teaching self-regulation. It's in making these small, conscious choices that a child's character really gets forged.
But here's the thing. These stories don't just point out a problem and leave it at that. Nope. They actually equip children with what you could call a spiritual toolkit, a set of really simple but powerful concepts they can use every single day. Let's take a look at the first tool in the box.
First up, we've got Bismillah. In one of the stories, a little girl named Mirha forgets to say it before she starts eating, and she feels this weird anxiety, like her food is heavy and it's just not satisfying. This is genius because it attaches a physical sensation to a spiritual absence, making that vague feeling of something's not right totally understandable to a kid.
And her realization just hits the nail on the head. After her friend Fatima gently reminds her, Mirha says Bismillah, and poof, she feels this immediate sense of peace. She gets it. It's not some magic spell, it's a conscious act of mindfulness. It's that moment you take to pause, center yourself, and basically invite positivity into something as simple as eating a meal. Okay, tool number 2 is dua or prayer. So remember Ahmed, the boy who was lost in the woods? When he's facing all these illusions created by shaitan, dua becomes his direct line for help. It's a tool that empowers a kid to actually say what they're afraid of and ask for help. It transforms that feeling of being helpless into an action, into seeking a solution. And when he makes dua, a path of light appears, which is this perfect symbol for the clarity that comes when you actually face your fears head on. And that brings us to the third tool, and this one is huge. It's iman, or faith. When shaitan's tricks get even scarier, telling Ahmad he's weak and all alone, it's his core belief that Allah is with him that acts as the bedrock of his resilience. It's this deep, deep trust that lets him stand his ground and say, I am not afraid. So let's recap this toolkit. You've got Bismillah, which is like your shield of intention, creating these mindful moments. You have dua, which is your direct line for guidance when you feel lost. And then you have iman, your inner power source, the thing that builds true, unshakable courage. Okay, so you've got this inner toolkit. Awesome. But how do you actually use it? How does it show up in the real world? Well, that's what this next batch of stories is all about, putting that faith into practice through good deeds. And it all starts with this just beautiful idea that a grandfather shares with his grandson Ali. He explains that good deeds make the soil of your heart fragrant. What a brilliant way to motivate someone to do good. It's not about racking up points or trying to avoid punishment. It's about an act of personal, spiritual beautification. And what does Ali do? He's so inspired. He immediately puts it into action. He shares his water with a friend who's thirsty. The story really focuses on these small, immediate chances for kindness that are all around us. And then, another simple thing, he helps an elderly neighbor carry something heavy. See, These aren't some grand, heroic acts. The lesson here is that empathy is a muscle, and you build it through small, consistent, everyday actions. But it's not just about small things, right? The same idea applies to bigger, tougher choices. There's a story about a hunter who's about to kill a dove, but he's moved when she pleads for her little chicks. His choice to show mercy is framed as this huge, transformative moment, a powerful act of empathy that changes him for the better.
And this all comes full circle for Ali. After doing these small, kind acts, he feels this inner peace and joy, that fragrance his grandfather was talking about. This just closes the loop perfectly. The story teaches that when you do good for others, you create a positive state for yourself. Altruism becomes its own reward. All right, let's get to our final section. This is where the rubber meets the road. How do you take all this spiritual training and connect it to the very real, practical dangers of the modern world? This is where faith meets everyday wisdom. And there's this fantastic story about a boy named Shahnawaz who's staying home alone for the very first time that just shows this blend perfectly. His parents don't just tell him to pray for safety. First, they give him a super clear, practical set of rules. So check out these rules his parents give him. The first four, totally practical safety tips anyone would give their kid. Don't open the door, don't play with the stove, you know the drill. But that fifth rule, that's the game changer. Why is it so effective? Because practical rules tell a kid what to do, but they don't help with the feeling of being scared. This final rule gives the child a tool to manage his own anxiety, which in turn helps him remember the practical rules instead of panicking. And his dad's takeaway is just so powerful. By following both sets of rules, Shahnawaz didn't just passively obey. He actively managed his environment and his own emotions. He went from just following orders to taking real ownership of his own well-being. He became responsible. So, when you step back and look at the whole picture, the ultimate goal becomes crystal clear. It's not just about raising obedient kids or even just safe kids. It's about building resilient kids, children who have practical knowledge for the world outside and a powerful spiritual toolkit to manage their world within. Which kind of leaves us with this one last question to chew on. These stories offer up this amazing blend of practical wisdom and simple, direct faith. And it really makes you wonder, in our incredibly complex world, could it be that the greatest strength we can give our children are the tools to build a simple yet unshakable inner peace?